Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today is a beautiful program. It's about living with sensitive psychic children. If you have had the experience as a parent and educator, or even as a child, this program is for you. We're talking about how to prepare a new generation. There's so much to discuss, and we're going to talk about, first and foremost, with Christina Person, who has been a mother and also a therapist, dealing with the very issues that may arise when parents don't know what to do when their children present signs that they are perceiving things that the parents probably cannot see, like the movie Sixth Sense. Maybe they can see entities, spirits, or they are very spiritual, or they are very sensitive about the difficult vibrations in different environments. What do you do? What should educators do? Should we simply dismiss it? Or finally, should we pay a close attention at it and do something? Well, we're going to tell you this and much more in this very program, also bringing the knowledge that we have in the book, The New Generation, that Divaldo Franco and I put together for you. And this book, we talk about Kardec's view on the new generation. The new generation is going to be all the more sensitive, all the more open to the new, to the spiritual environment, and we actually need to know about it. Did you know Chico Xavier actually got to know from Emmanuel, his mentor, that after the year 2000, no bad spirits would actually be reincarnating on the earth? And we say this about the very dark, evil spirits. Only those who are really committed to their own regeneration and the regeneration of the earth. That doesn't mean that every kid that's going to be born after the year 2000 is an angel. No, but it means that they will need a different type of education to really blossom their best, because they come fully aware that they need to improve themselves and help society improve itself. So we are a very particular time on the earth, one in which we really, really need to pay a close attention at it. Well, before I go into greater details with you, I would like to share that we, on July 4th, have a very special program. We're going to be releasing this weekend on the website a special 3-hour program for the second anniversary of Kardec Radio, right here now, live, 3-hour live program in which we're going to be inviting back the very man who kick-started Kardec Radio with us in the year 2011, Dr. Gary Schwartz. He is going to be back here with us discussing about his latest research on mediumship and healing. And we have a lot to share with you. He's rejoiced because he was the very first guest at Kardec Radio on July 4th, 2011. And now we're finally bringing him back for you, so you can also talk to him, because the live program is all about interaction with you through the phone number 1-858-769-4705 or at the Blog Talk Radio chat room when we are displaying the very chat during the very program that we're doing live. But the live program we're doing today is also an opportunity for you to talk to us and ask questions. All you have to do is call 858-769-4705, or you can also email to us at kardecradio@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Kardec Radio, or come directly to the chat room of Blog Talk Radio. There are so many ways of you communicating with us, and we're very grateful to all the listeners who often send emails to us, kindly ask questions, kindly make comments, and they want a T-shirt as well. And you can earn your own T-shirt. Actually, you can receive it for free if you just email to us at kardecradio@gmail.com and say how much you like Kardec Radio, what you like about it, or make other comments and suggestions. And all we're going to do is send one to you because, two great listeners that remain anonymous kindly donated at their own will and idea 100 T-shirts of Kardec Radio so we could send it out to all the listeners around the world because Kardec Radio has listeners in more than 61 countries. Can you believe it? This is certainly the plan of the higher spirits because we really didn't plan it out or didn't envision all that much. But they do, and all we have to do is work with you so we can grow, expand, and bring Spiritism to every other corner in the world. Right now, we want to remind you as well that on July 4th, 5th, and 6th, Divaldo Franco and our other great speakers will be at a very special Spiritist event organized in Leominster, Massachusetts. It's going to happen at the Four Seasons Sheraton Hotel in Leominster, Massachusetts, and it's your opportunity to really go there and get to know more about this opportunity. Well, dear listener, I know there is so much for us to share with you, and I want to share that mostly the dear Allan Kardec asked this very question. Is it possible that a child be more evolved than that the soul of the parent? It's quite amazing that the answer is that is very frequently the case. Haven't you yourself often witnessed it? Well, that's quite striking, huh? Kardec, as an amazing educator, was very concerned about education, especially of the children. In the very upcoming issue of the Spiritist magazine, which you can read for free at www.thespiritistmagazine.com, we are going to display a very article Kardec talking about education for children. It's unbelievable how very insightful he was, very careful. And he says, are you teaching your children about school, sports, and nowadays even people are teaching children how to be political, doing political manifestations, which is fine, but are we teaching them the ethical moral lessons, which is really going to be the backbone of their future behavior? Are we or are we not? This is the point here at Kardec Radio when we talk about children's education. And there is much, much more for us to share with you at Kardec Radio. And right now we are going to give a short break, but when we come back, we are going to share with you our interview with Christina Pearson about living with psychic children. Follow to that, we are going to share with you the insights that both Humberto de Campos, Brother X, Divaldo Franco and I, and Kardec have about living with more sensitive kids just after the break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Keep emotional control under all circumstances. An unbalanced nervous system means an unbalanced life. If difficulties threaten your balance, utilize prayer. Prayer is effective medicine for all the illnesses of the soul.
Available for purchase, the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Listen to our sister radio, Bazera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also, beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here talking about living with child who are more sensitive, who perceive things in a different way. And you may be asking, is this something of a new agey type of stuff? No, it's not. It's about life. Life is such that when we study the brain, the behavior, we can tell that some children are really different. Different in the sense not of labeling them, but you need to observe it as parents and educator who they are. And you may be asking, what about Jesus, right? Do we have any account? We do. Unfortunately, it's only in Portuguese, but if you go to the book Boa Nova by the Spirit, Humberto de Campos, soon we're going to have a translation in the Spiritist magazine, because the Spiritist magazine has its also the role of publishing many things that's probably going to take like a long time to be published in English as a book. So here we have on chapter 2, the spirit of Brother X, or Humberto de Campos, through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier, saying the following: that Maria and her cousin Isabel, so Mother Mary, Jesus' mom, and Elizabeth, who was the cousin, the mother of John the Baptist, they were visiting each other. Actually, Isabel and her son John the Baptist were visiting the poor home, says Brother X, of Mary in Nazareth. And he says, after the habitual greetings and some chatting about family issues, the 2 cousins, they got into the home again and talked about the children, who actually had their birth a little anticipated according to some singular happenings and some strange circumstances. Later, the Isabel said, Maria, what amazes me is John's attitude, because he's often deeply in meditation in spite of his early age. And it's not rare that I find him often amongst the fig trees and amongst the pathways of nature in deep meditation. Maria replies, well, these children, Isabel, in my point of view, they bring to humanity the divine light of a new way. My son, who is Jesus, is also like that, and which brings to my heart an atmosphere of incessant care. Often, I'm going to find them amongst by the waters, the river, and talking to the passers-by along the way in the path to Samaria and others. And he often has a very kind word to the passers-by who are suffering. And he talks about the communion with God with such eloquence that I never found in the observations of the doctors of the law. Well, these are the these are the beginning words of this amazing dialogue between these two mothers, Mother Mary talking about Jesus, and Elizabeth, her cousin, talking about John the Baptist. They are talking here about them when they were in their childhood. So they were so good observants as mothers that they could tell these two children were different from everybody else in so many ways. But they were not proud like egotistic, thinking, oh, we are privileged, etc. No, they were seriously concerned because as a good mother, Mother Mary knew that in spite of the fact that Jesus seemed to know more than the doctors of the law, she says, and I quote, "My son is also like that, which makes my heart be enveloped in incessant care." This is, in a few words, what we are talking about the program at Kardec Radio today. If your children display some differences in that regard, you shouldn't be thinking about bringing them on TV or profiting from it. Like Mother Mary and Elizabeth, it's about what does this mean in regards to our relationship to God. So this and much more we're going to talk about in the program today at Kardec Radio, and we're going to read more of this very chapter that is quite fascinating from the book Good News, which is not translated from Portuguese. This is just a free translation from us here at Kardec Radio, but the original title in Portuguese is Boa Nova, and by the Spirit, Brother X. We are going to read more throughout the program for you today of this very chapter, so we have more insights about what to do when we are receiving in our own home the souls of those who, the children, like Kardec, he asked the spirits, can they be more evolved than parents? And the Spirit said that's often the case. This is the answer to question 197 of the Spirit's book. What if that's the case? What do we do? Do we simply give in their education to themselves alone, like many parents are doing? They come to me and say, oh, Vanessa, I'm learning so much from my children. I don't need to teach them anything. We don't quite think that's the way to go. And it's not the reverse either, that we impose ourselves thinking that children are just a blank slate in which we have to write a message as if they don't bring any content to the world. So we're going to talk about this view. We're giving a minute of a break just to give you some time to think about it as well. And when we come back, Christina Pearson, a mother and also a great therapist for children, is going to be here sharing about her knowledge, publishing the book, A Knowing, that matches pretty much what we've been discussing in the Spiritist circles.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Come and listen to our CD, Unfolding Our Spiritual Nature, Path of Harmony, by Dr. Raul Teixeira. The CD has questions and answers on euthanasia, suicide, pain relief, past life therapy, prayer and better attunement, law and affinity, the spirit world, raising our thoughts, and much more. You can purchase the CD by visiting SSB Online Bookstore at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Known as one of the most scientific books by Allan Kardec, The Genesis dives deeper into the origins of our planet to the advent of the new generations to come. Purchase your copy today, online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Andrea Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here at Kardec Radio, rejoiced with the presence of Christina Pearson. She's a mother of three, a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, Reiki master, author, and speaker. She's the author of the great book, A Knowing, Living with Psychic Children. She is currently living in the United States, and she still continues the research on psychic phenomena in children. If you want to know more about the book, please go to her website, www.aknowing.com, or you can also go to YouTube and watch 5 excerpts of her talk about the book and living with psychic children. You just type it in at YouTube, Christina Pearson, and you're going to find out. If you have a hard time, just let us know at Kardec Radio. We'll guide you through the steps. But here we are. Thank you so much, Christina, for being with us at Kardec Radio today.
Oh, Vanessa, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I'm very excited.
Yes, it's very exciting because, you know, Christina, as we talk about in the spiritual circles, there is a new generation that has been coming up for a few decades, and it seems there are more and more of them around us, and we want to be fully aware and also give tips and hints for parents to accommodate the needs of the new generation, and they are quite psychic in many ways. And we know we have been observing, researching on them, and especially with your kids. That's where it began, right? So we'd like to know how and when you started this research.
Well, I started this research really with my second son who was born, Emmett. My first son, I felt, wow, he's trying to communicate with me all the time without words, telepathically. And I had to eventually say to him, please, you know, I can't understand you. You have to use words. And I didn't go any further with him or with any research then, which I regret now, but these are the things that happen. And but my second son, Emmett, was not going to be ignored. And he put me in a position where I absolutely had to start figuring things out. He was asking me questions and telling me things like, he was saying, well, where is Jesus? I was with him before I was in your belly. And why do we have to die to be with God when we were with him already before? And all these sort of and I thought, oh, what is happening here? And so that's really what started me. Trying to understand what was happening with my children is really what started all of this. And trying to be sure that I could be the most supportive parent, and then to help other parents too.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really great. And can you share some of the cases and observations you got so people have an idea about what kind of scenario you have been researching upon?
Yes. Well, with my children, for example, they would see energy beings, which they call angels. And this is very interesting to see, for example, how that changed over time. Before they were exposed to any ideas of how we as a culture process how we see angels, they would see them as blue blobs or as multicolored orbs. They would see them as clouds with beautiful colored rain falling from them. And they always brought with them a great sense of peace and protection and calmness for the children. They saw lights, they saw portals, they saw auras around people. They could tell someone's energetic state, you know, and they would see with people who were angry, they would see attachments going from these people to things that were scary for them to see. Which was another reason why I felt I had to really learn about this stuff, because I needed to understand how to help them.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because in your case, you are open, but we know that for many parents, they hear this and they're like, okay, whatever, maybe it's your imagination, right?
Yeah, and I talk about that too a lot, is there's 2 types of ways that we teach children to deny their gifts and their abilities. And the first part is would be what I call active denial. And those would be people who either don't believe it themselves or are afraid of it. And so they say things like you were just saying, you're making that up, or that's a lie, or even punishment. I've had people come and tell me that as children, they were very, very open, very psychic, and their parents threatened them with punishment and all kinds of threats in order for them, and they just shut down out of fear. The one that's sort of more common is what I would call a passive denial, and that would be sort of behavioral teaching. So we'll walk through a room, and the child's in the room, and they see this mighty being, this incredible entity, and we'll just walk right by it like it's not there. We'll walk through it. They'll hear sounds, they'll hear singing, they'll hear people talking, and we don't respond at all. So by not responding, we're teaching them that this is something that we ignore. This is not something that we recognize as being real or as going on. It's not our fault. We don't see it. But that's why when the children come to us and they say, "Mommy, I see a lady standing there," or "Mommy, I hear singing," or whatever, it's so important that we believe them and we say, "Okay, listen, it's wonderful that you can hear that. I can't because I don't have that talent, but you do, and that's wonderful, and I want you to tell me about it every time you see or hear something." And that way they keep themselves open and they feel safe. And it's just like saying to a child, "Well, I can't play a piano, but you can." It's a talent. It's an ability. And we don't need to be afraid of it.
Exactly, because in your book, A Knowing, there is on page 17, which is entitled A Knowing, and you say, I quote, "Most people have taught that babies are tabula rasa, empty slates waiting to be written upon by their parents and by society, and certainly in relation to this world and this dimension in terms of our societies with their rules and beliefs. This is true. But I believe that children come to us with a great amount of insight and understanding, a deep knowing, a connection to the source that can explain what is true and real." And this matches so much, Christina, with Kardec's teachings when he talks about, there is a question in the Spirit's book that we mentioned at the introduction, that can the spirit of the child be even more wiser than the parent? And the Spirit say almost often that's the case.
Yes.
And some people are not fully aware of it, so they just deny it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think they deny it out of fear and sometimes out of just out of ignorance. But wait a minute,
Exactly.
I'm the adult, I'm the parent, and I should really be in control here. It's my job, and I need to know what's going on. And I try to say to people, look, it doesn't matter if you believe them or not, but at least honor them by believing that they are telling you their truth.
Exactly. So it's not like they're creating lies or imagination. So there is also, Christina, a fine line. You just mentioned it briefly, but we would like to give more tools to the parents who are listening to us right now. In the case that, they have their role. We also in Spiritism, we understand being a parent is a mission. You need to be skillful in your educational skills, but at the same time acknowledging the baggage that they bring in, the knowledge, the experiences. So there is such a fine line there. What would you recommend? How would you say parents could well balance these roles and acknowledge and, as you say, honor the spirit of the child's abilities that are coming from previous lives?
Well, I think the first thing, again, is to be open and to believe and understand that these children are not making things up. They're not trying to get attention. They're not trying to upset anyone. They're coming open and honest. I mean, I truly believe they come to us. They're gifts. And with them come all these beautiful gifts, like being open, still having memories of the past, whether it's a past existence or whether it's being with a source. And they come and they share it. They're so sensitive still. They haven't been taught to ignore. They haven't been taught to compartmentalize and only focus on the third dimension. And they're very insightful. So they will give you lessons when you need them the most. So all I can say to parents, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute, but all I can say is to the parents is like, once you open up and you start to ask questions of your children and say, well, where did you see this and why? And ask them to draw anything that they've seen. Because, first of all, it's a wonderful way to be able to have a reference of what they've seen, to be able to sit down with the child and ask questions, very detailed questions. And this whole communication and interaction starts to occur between parent and child. And it's a bonding thing, it's a learning thing, and it just builds so much love and trust between the parent and the child. You can't go wrong by doing this.
That's so beautiful. And also you mentioned in one of the chapters that children can experience the divine without ceremonial preparation, partly because they are so open to it. So you have cases after cases here that you mention about how they spontaneously talk about Jesus' visit and how they experience this other world, right?
Yes, absolutely, because all interaction and all communication for children is fluid and normal. They don't have fear of interacting with angelic beings or with remembering past lives. They don't feel threatened by anything. So they're just open and it's fluid. And what I found was that as I learned, because I kept all these pictures and everything they said, and I kept track of it, I didn't know why at the time. I was trying to figure things out, you see. But as I began to learn, that's when I would look back and say, oh heavens, look at this. Now, they couldn't have known this. It took me 3 years of research to find this out. Whether it was a symbol that represented, God taking chaos and making harmony and order out of chaos, and giving it to me, this symbol to me when I was very, very stressed out and very in a state of chaos. And then 3-4 years later, they would draw an angel with it on, and they would say, this angel came to protect and keep order. It was amazing. So to be able to keep these track of this stuff and look back, and as I learned myself about the colors they saw and what they would say was happening, then the more I realized how deep these children understand what's going on around us in a way that, we think, we're taught as adults that they shouldn't.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. We're going to give a short break, Christina, but when we come back, we'd like to talk more about when these children experiences dreams and your tips regarding especially bad dreams, okay?
Okay.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and Psychograph by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Listen to our sister radio, Buzzera Online Web Radio, retransmitting Kardec radio shows 3 times a day. Also beautiful and inspiring programs in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to www.spiritist.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Shiko Shavyar, explains in simple language appropriate for children two paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here having a great conversation, learning a lot about how to live with psychic children. We're experiencing a new generation that has been coming along for a few decades, and they are in greater number as we progress in our planet. And for those who would like to know more about the experiences of children with memories of previous lives, very soon in July, we're going to have a beautiful program with Dr. Jim Tucker, the one that continues the works of the renowned Ian Stevenson. For now, we're going to talk about how, from a parent's perspective, we can honor, as Christina Pearson says, our children's abilities, especially their spirituality. So, Christina, it's so soothing and beautiful the way you suggest. It's very second nature for you, though for many parents it's not very simple. So would you recommend that parents who are having a hard time dealing with their children's spirituality or psychic abilities, that they see somebody more knowledgeable to help them out?
Oh, absolutely. There's no harm ever in learning. You know, learning is the most, but we're here for that. We're here to learn and expand ourselves and to understand. The first most important thing I think parents need to do is sit in a state of calmness, not to be afraid, and to listen to their children. Listen to what they have to say, and don't pass judgment on it. You know, just listen and talk to them and communicate, and then start to go to people who can help them. And, you know, as you see more and more, there are more and more people out there that are available to parents, that are psychic or that work with psychic children, and who've written books about different types of psychic children and psychic phenomenon, so that there is so much more information out there now than there ever was when I first started. For me, one of the things that it works for some people in terms of what they're willing to accept or not. For me, one of the things I started to do was Reiki, and I started to learn about Reiki, and I took Reiki 1, and I had my children take Reiki 1 because they were having a lot of bad dreams, since you brought up bad dreams, and this stopped the bad dreams for them.
Oh, so let's talk about that.
Let's talk about
not
that.
everything is beautiful and easy when somebody has disabilities. Sometimes these children will report or will say that they are experiencing difficult things, that they are capturing, perceiving some things that are not good, especially in dreams. So how is that?
Yes, it's very true, and that was one of the things. It's funny, so many people had said to me when I was writing the book, don't put the scary things in. And I thought, well, they're like, you're going to turn people off. And I said, wait a minute. You know, one of the things that propelled me to learn so much and to try to understand what was going on so I could help my children was the scary stuff. I mean, if a child comes in and says, oh, I just saw an angel in my room, people are like, oh, okay, they're either going to believe them or not. But if a child comes in and says, you know, there's this really scary something, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you sit up and you take notice. Why is this happening? But then if you keep looking for an answer as to what this is or what you can do, and you can't find anyone out there who has, is writing about children who are having scary experiences, then you start to feel more and more frightened, like, why is it only happening to me and my children?
Exactly.
And it's not true. It happens. If you can see a being, you can see any kind of being. You know, so a child who can see an angel can see a lesser entity as well. There's no doubt about that. One of the things I do with dreams, and I did with my children, was first to find out, was it what I would call a waking dream? Because sometimes they would come in and they would say, I just had a dream. I saw, and they would describe what they saw. And I know they're awake. So I would say, well, did you dream this with your eyes open or closed? Because what I realize is at some point they start to understand that these these spirits and these energies and these entities, they can see them and interact with them, but that they're somewhat different than, let's say, us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe they're not as solid, or maybe they sense they're coming from a different dimension or a different time or whatever. And so they start to describe them sometimes as dreams.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always find that out. And one of the things that I found for, there's so many things people can do, you know, in terms of, first of all, letting the child know that they have the power to ask for help and to protect themselves.
Yes.
And that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a child feels helpless, then they feel fear. And if they feel fear, then they're very vulnerable. So one of the things I always say is, like, sit with your child, hold them, and let them call in their own help.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Let them call in their own help, and let them say, you can't, you cannot come to me anymore, or you can't be in my room anymore. I think that's very important. And again, getting help and advice.
That's interesting. You're right. And spiritually speaking, as you're mentioning, we always say in the Spiritist centers, teaching your child to pray, knowing that they have a guardian angel, that they are surrounded by the loving presence of God, and also if, for example, in Spiritist centers, we have service in which they can come and receive spiritual treatment to relieve if they perceive some bad entities or stuff like this. Then they are acknowledging instead. Some parents just push it away and say, come on, man up. Who are you? You're crying. No. You're like a baby.
Right. Stop making that up for attention, or no. And it's true. They need to know that they have support. They need to know that they have protection on both sides of the veil, as it were. And they need to know that they have the ability to call on that help and call on that protection at any time to come to them, because it's always there. We're the ones who teach them. Now, I know in the Spiritist movement, you're much better at sort of surrounding the children and supporting them and allowing them to understand that this happens, it's normal, the interaction is normal. But for a lot of other people, that kind of support isn't there. And so the children start to kind of say, oh, there must be something wrong with me, or I must be making this up, or I'm the only one feeling this way, I'm the only person seeing these things. And that makes it harder for them. They feel more isolated and alone when they're never alone.
Exactly. And isn't it true that sometimes when our children experience these nightmares or they perceive some negativity, it's oftentimes correlated with something that is happening in their parents' lives. And they become almost like a gateway of information for parents. So if they just listen to their children, they're going to recognize that there is a reason why this is happening, that they are more sensitive and they are perceiving something that is happening to the family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I said earlier, it was just that when my children would teach me things or give me things, and symbols and pictures, and they would start to explain, and I'd say, oh my goodness, they're teaching me something now. This fits. This is the answer, or this is highlighting the problem that is going on in my life right now. I remember my daughter wrote to her dad, and she said, you see with your mind, not with your eyes. Your eyes are just something. And he left it there on his side of the bed, and I saw it, and I thought, wow. And he looked at it, and he put it aside, and he ignored it. And I picked it up, and I went over to her, and I said, I want you to explain this to me. And basically what she explained is that if you don't believe that something is possible, or you don't believe in something, it could be standing right in front of you. You will not see it. Your eyes are only there to process energy that's coming through, but if your brain doesn't recognize that energy, it doesn't exist. And so basically she was saying your beliefs define your perception. So if people are cut off and they're negative and they're not open and they're judgmental, no matter what a child comes to them with, they're not going to understand the depth and the importance of what is being brought to them.
That's interesting. But there is there is certainly a barrier, Christina, sometimes between parents and children, which is language, because sometimes children will not be able to express exactly in our way of understanding. So you have a helpful tip in that regard, right?
I do, yes. Well, it's drawing. Get your child to draw. It is amazing to watch them and watch them do it. Don't say anything. Don't interrupt. Just stand there and watch them. The intensity. They are intense. They have attention to detail. They're very specific. And this then allows the parent to better understand what this child has experienced, what the child has seen, and then they can have a conversation, and it's an ongoing conversation about this entity or about where they have been or about where they'll go and they'll travel somewhere and they'll come back and they want to tell you about it. What do you mean? I don't understand where you were. I don't understand what you're trying to say, or what kind of being was in your room. And what's so interesting then is that this whole dialogue begins, because we have a hard time. I mean, if you hear adults try to describe, well, I walked in this room and suddenly I saw, and our vocabulary is so limited. We can't really put into words, and you'll hear people say it was kind of like this, or it reminded me kind of like that, but they can't actually give specifics that fit sometimes some of these experiences. So a child who's only learning our languages will have a much harder time explaining. So to get the children to draw, and it's really magnificent, and then you can keep them. You don't have to take them out or leave them out, but keep them, and you'll be amazed to see what comes next and what comes next and what comes next, you know. And this is what allows the dialogue and the understanding, because really it's like pictures speak louder than words.
That's true. That's a very interesting technique. It's a very helpful tip. Christina, we're going to give the last break. When we come back, we have more questions about the fact that these new generations and the phenomenon they experience has or have not existed since ancient times.
Okay.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Would you like to liberate yourself from your life struggles or to find inner balance? The Inner Journey CD has 3 beautiful visualizations that will help you bring harmony to your life. As Joanna DeAngeli tells us to, live in a way that you leave enlightening footprints in your pathway as if they were stars pointing out the pathway to happiness. To find the CD, go to the bookstore on the Spiritist Society of Baltimore webpage, www.ssbaltimore.org. That is www.ssbaltimore.org, and start your inner journey today.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
A new masterpiece has just been released by EDI-CEI of America, Memoirs of a Suicide by Yvonne Pereira, a phenomenal book about what happens to suicides in the afterlife. Truly instructive, it brings greater hope that no one really dies or spends eternity in damnation. A true account of the mercy and providence of God. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now available for purchase, the book Chico Xavier, Medium of the Century by Guy Léon Playfair. This is the first biographical and critical study in English of one of the outstanding mediums of all time, through whom more than 450 books were received by automatic writing over a 70-year period, few of which, until recently, were available in English translations. Purchase your copy today at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com, www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, if you have questions, as we are talking about a knowing, living with psychic children with Christina Pearson, You can email to us at kardec@kardecradio.com, or you can go to our website, kardecradio.com, and get your answers addressed by Christina. We'll forward the email to her, or you can go to her website, www.aknowing.com, get to know more about the work, the book, and talk to her directly. Right now, we're discussing about helpful tips. There is a chapter 7 in her book, Helpful Hints, A Knowing, in which she has lots of beautiful recommendations here, including some that she has already mentioned. For example, when she talked about meditation, prayer, and many, many other things. Christina, when you shared these helpful hints, you are telling parents that when you have a child that is presenting these abilities, there is no other way but to open up and learn more, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no other way. And, we think about our responsibilities as parents, and we think, we have to take them to the doctor, and we have to teach them in school, and we have to dress them, and we have to, make sure that they're well fed and they have their vitamins and all this other thing. But we also have a responsibility to support them. And it's not always in the traditional way. And this is part of supporting these children because they come with such an extraordinary gift. Think of the bravery for them to come here and to be willing to be open in a society where we're really overall fairly closed and kind of wandering around in the dark. And they come in, these beautiful lights, and they're like, look what I have to share with you. And we're kind of, so many of us, just cover that light up now. You don't want to don't want to rock the boat. And it is our responsibility. If they are going to be so brave, then we have to be brave enough to at least be willing to open up and listen to them and learn.
Yeah. And as you said, like nowadays, you have your clips. If people want to go to YouTube, they can type in Christina Pearson and watch you explain the whole 9 yards of your research about living with psychic children. But nowadays, there are so many people already observing the same phenomenon that it's like impossible not to have some enlightenment. If you are lost, there is internet. There is always a neighbor, somebody who can advise you what to do and how to open up. But in your research, Christina, have you observed by talking to so many other people and giving lectures that this phenomena of having children with such abilities is not something new of the new world? It's something that has always happened, right?
I think it's something that has always been with us. And I think that the human race goes through periods of time where they listen more to the children and then they listen less to not at all. And it's this sort of cycle. We're trying to get it right. I think in, times past and in indigenous societies, they listen. This is something that is prized. They are close to the land. They are close to the spirit of the land, and they are open to nature, and therefore they're open to the source and everything that comes from the source. And so children that come forward like this are just cherished and honored, and they're taught to expand their gifts, and they act as really, really important contributors and leaders in their society. Whereas, we have moved away, and we're focused more on the third dimensional solid here and now, and we forget. And it just seems that now we're being put in a position where we're not going to be allowed to ignore and forget. These children just keep coming, and they are voicing themselves, and it's wonderful to see it, They're waking us all up.
That's so true. The other day I was reading on the internet, this 9-year-old girl, she, in so many ways, she confronts the McDonald's industry, saying, "You're tricking us with this food, telling us that this is healthy." So,
is she really good for her?
Yes, and she really got the attention. I mean, a letter such as this, apparently so simple, really got the attention of the media, and she actually deserved an answer from the CEO of McDonald's. So And she's right. There are so many things that are twisted and they're voicing, but we need to open the pathway for them, right?
Absolutely. And here's the irony, is that there is a beautiful truth, and we tend to turn away from these children they open their mouths, the truths that come out of their mouths, and they're so pure and so beautiful. And yet we'll believe things like this, as you said with the McDonald's, that we'll buy into things that are not true at all very easily. And yet our children will walk in and say, I have the most amazing thing to share with you, and we'll be like, okay, go back, and I don't want to hear that anymore. Don't make that up. And it's like, no, shift. Listen to your heart, not your head.
Exactly.
So how you'll feel it.
Exactly. But how can we tell parents and educators in general to treat these experiences that they are voicing, that they are sharing, as something that is natural?
That is, first of all, I would say that people are more and more open, thank goodness, given a chance. I found that, now if I walk into a room and I say, I wrote this book about psychic children, the most extraordinary people that you would not think would be interested or open to it will suddenly start wanting to talk about it. And my grandson saw this, and I think this is interesting because my son or my daughter is saying this, that, and the other, and her mother doesn't know what to do. Whereas years ago, people would just, even if they wanted to ask you that, or they wanted to get you into a conversation, engage in conversation, they wouldn't. People were too afraid and too closed and too unwilling to kind of risk, whether it was their reputation or risk being ridiculed, because there was a lot of ridicule that came along with it.
Yes.
And that's another reason why I think these kids are so brave. They keep coming back. Even if they're not believed for a while, they will continue to come back.
Yes, that is true. And it's so true because there are some books that were written in the Spiritist literature in Brazil. It's not in English yet, though, that some Spiritist psychologists, they write down about how we should acknowledge in pregnancy. But for those who are listening to us, there are the André Luiz books, especially Missionaries of Light. On chapter 3, talks about the reincarnation of a certain spirit, and they talk about, how we should actually encourage the spirit, because sometimes they know it's challenging to reincarnate and to be here. It's not like, okay, I walk in the park. So, right?
Yeah, I know they've done it once, so you think they'd be like, well, no thank you. I've been there, and it's tough. I'm not going back, but they're brave. They come back.
Exactly, they come back. So sometimes he even says in another book, Action Reaction, that some miscarriages are actually a byproduct of the spirit's fear of reincarnating, or the mother's fear that something's not going to go right. So things are just spoiled. So from that spiritual perspective, you're right. So the more we talk to other people about it, instead of keeping it to ourselves, but finding like-minded minds to bring these experiences to the natural level and allow this to be used for some reason, because there is a reason, right, Christina? These children are coming here with these abilities.
Yes, I agree. And I would also say to parents, if you find, or to people in general who are interested, if you find that no one around you is open or interested in your immediate vicinity, there's the internet. There are so many groups that provide information, that provide support, chat rooms. I know that teenagers are experiencing this a lot, and they need places to turn. And there are different websites for these kids to go and say, I'm seeing this and I'm experiencing this. And from what I've understood, I spoke with Peter Tung at length, and he was a head of a school, and he dealt with a lot of children who were psychic. And he said, you see these things, no one will believe them. They're on their own, and this can lead to a lot of depression. It can lead to drug use and alcoholism, because it's a way of them numbing it and blocking it out. And you don't want that. You want your child to know how to protect himself or herself, by putting up psychic shields and clearing their energy, taking salt baths, what kind of crystals maybe if they need a little extra help, visualizing different layers of light around them, calling on their guides and their angels. All this sort of stuff is a healthy way. But the only way that the children will understand how to get a healthy path to protect themselves is that the parents support them and help them. And that's why all these books and websites are so wonderful, and the programs on TV are helpful. Because now these children aren't on their own being told or made fun of or told that they're making it up, and then they turn to other more negative ways of dulling and numbing things.
Yes.
And blocking out the experiences.
Mm-hmm. So that's so true. This need for transcendence is something inherent to all of us human beings here. So it's great to have you here, Kardec Radio, Christina, and I would like to ask you if you have your final words to share with the listener just for today.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you so much. I think the big thing is really just to trust and be open and not to fear, because fear stands in the way of all progress, and fear stands in the way of everything good. So there's nothing to fear. It's all energy. It's all light. It's all beautiful, and those things that seem like they're twisted and dark, they're just energy that have, been directed the wrong way, and not to despair, because your children and you can learn to protect yourselves, and from there you can grow together and you can learn the most amazing things, because my children have taught me so much that I never would have learned had they not been in my life and been open.
So what would be a good contact for people who are willing to talk directly to you about this?
Oh, absolutely. They can contact me through my Facebook. I have a Knowing Living with Psychic Children. They can contact me through the a Knowing website, aknowing.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if they need to contact me absolutely directly with my personal email, it's Chris Pierson, which is ChrisPierson 65 @gmail.com. So, and all those emails and any way that you get through to me will come to my email. That's the Chris Pierson 65. So if you go through a Knowing, it'll come to me. So however they try to contact me, it all comes there.
That's great. That's wonderful. We are really joyful just listening to your tips, your advice, and we hope to have you back here at Kardec Radio sometime soon, okay?
Oh, thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
I would love
you.
to come back.
That's wonderful. Dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed this first part of the program. Right now, we're going to open for more information. We are very thankful that Bernadette Leal shared her own experience, and we're going to quote from the chat room at Blog Talk Radio when she says that, she has an example that she was in her room and she was upset and stressed out when her daughter walked in the room and said, "Mom, you need to stop whatever you're thinking because I can feel in my own room your negative vibes." That is so true. People who are sensitive like us, we really feel people's thoughts and feelings inevitably. Also, she mentions that as a teacher, she has experienced that her students come and tell about seeing things and people in their room, and when she had a meeting with a parent, they say they will give the child drugs because they are seeing these things, that they are saying that they are seeing these things. So it was hard. And, it happened to Chico Xavier himself as the medium. As a child, he saw entities and he talked about it, but his father was so upset. He really blocked the whole way because he was ignorant. He didn't know any better. Divaldo Franco, the same happened to him. People telling him, don't say this stuff that you're saying because people don't know what to do. It's so sad. But we're coming to a day and age in which we need to change it, because not only can bring some traumatic experience to children, but it's very challenging to come to the world having a task to be fulfilled and having to work so hard, because we should work in collaboration with parents, and parents should open up the pathway. Here in the program, we're not saying, oh, train your child to do mediumistic work. No, because if you go to the Medium's book by Allan Kardec, he addresses that issue. And we shouldn't be pushing them to expand, but just leave it to the natural thing. As Christina Pearson said, acknowledge it, honor it, but do not make the child now the center of attention because of it, because that's a bad thing as well. So we would say the balance of acknowledging, knowing the implications of it, and at the same time, we would say when they become 16, they're probably at their best age to develop, to educate their mediumship in a spiritist center. These are André Louis' own words in his books, especially the book Disobsession. No time before that would be proper. We also know people are asking us about more information on Jesus' own childhood, and we're going to give you some more reports which were brought in by the spirit of Brother X, which is the pseudonym of the great Brazilian writer Humberto de Campos. In the spirit realm, he came to Chico Xavier and wrote several books, amongst them the very book Boa Nova. It's not in English yet, though the Spiritist magazine already has 2 of its chapters in its previous issues, and the goal is to publish more of its chapters there until we have the whole book published in English itself. It's a phenomenal book. Chapter 2, he talks about Jesus and his cousin John the Baptist. And here, as we talked about at the beginning of the program, the description is so amazing. It's a great guide for parents and educators who are dealing with children that have a visionary mind, that come with missionary tasks to be fulfilled. And we're talking about our guiding model, Jesus. Here, the cousins, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Elizabeth, they are talking about their children. And in that conversation, Mary is saying that her son, Jesus, is just like John the Baptist. And she's fully aware of it. And she keeps telling Elizabeth, the other day, we were in Jerusalem doing our religious celebrations in the temple. And Jesus got into this conversation with the doctors of the law in the temple, and everybody was perplexed about his approach. She says, his science, Jesus' science, cannot come from this world. It must come from God, that certainly manifests himself through his friendly lips of purity. And as a man of the temple named Eleazar observed Jesus' attitude and behavior, he called Joseph, the father of Jesus, in particular, and told him, actually he advised, he said, be careful, because your son probably is going to put a lot of great powerful people from Israel, in trouble. Which is quite amazing. How many people come to us and they observe our kids and they say statements such as this, like, "Oh, this child here is going to bring some reality to life, so be careful." And here is Joseph, how he behaved, and Mary as well. So Mary said, well, as we heard Eleazar's advice, I thought about the Jesus' childhood, and I had some form of, some type of fear for his future. But Eleazar, who was one of the doctors of the law in the temple, he promised to take care of Jesus' future. And as they went back to their home in Nazareth, they actually talked, mother and father, Joseph and Mary, about what to do with the little one, and they agreed upon bringing him to the religious pathway in the temples. However, she says, on the following day, Jesus approached me in the morning and asked, "Mom, what do you want from me?" Haven't I given testimonial of my communion with the Father who is in heaven? She was so surprised with his question that she actually, in a hesitant way, replied, "Well, my son, I'm caring for you. I recognize that you need a better preparation for your life." But as if Jesus, she says, knew all along what was happening in her heart, he pondered, "Mom, all useful and generous preparation in the world is precious. However, I am already with God. My Father, though, desires that we give our example of a good choice, and I will make the best choice, the best school that I choose." On the next day, as if fulfilling his own promise, he actually asked his father Joseph with great humility to work with him. Since then, let's listen to this. Since then, as if he wanted to teach us that the greatest school for God is at home and in our own efforts, he started working in the works of wood with his father, bringing a lot of joy and enthusiasm at home. Dear listeners, this is what we're talking about. How do we deal with children that are... We're talking about our guide and model, Jesus, and as a child, he was particular and very peculiar for sure. And here we have the accounts. Many people say, "Oh, I don't know where I can find references about Jesus' childhood." It's right here, Spiritist Literature, in the book Boa Nova by Brother X. And this is not the end of the chapter. There is so much more. And we're certainly going to publish it in the Spiritist magazine for you, so you can have access to the whole 9 yards of this conversation. And how Mother Mary was so insightful that though she had her own questions, she acknowledged and honored, as Christina Pearson said, that Jesus had something very particular to bring to the world. So she was a careful mother and at the same time respectful to the sons of baggage that he brought from his wisdom of other worlds, let's say this way. So here is a great example on how parents and educators can honor and acknowledge these features in a child without either blocking or creating too much excitement. Neither of these are good extremes. We need to balance it out. Also, if you go to the book The New Generation that Divaldo Franco and I wrote, we talk about the new education for the new generation on chapter 7, in which we quote Pestalozzi as the educator of Allan Kardec himself, a pioneer in the field of modern schools and pedagogy, but also Allan Kardec himself brought to us these great educational features that in the upcoming issue of the Spiritist magazine, you're going to have a whole article about Kardec bringing his lessons of ethical moral teachings to the children, which is so important and fascinating. Here we talk about many ways in which Spiritism can bring enlightenment. If we combine the latest advancements of science and Spiritism, we're going to see that we're on the right track. When we talk about the importance of focusing on the prenatal life and also on the first 7 years of life, that's the time in which parents should give all of their best. Not that later on you're going to say, whatever, I gave you everything, I don't need to do anything else. But saying at that very moment, from prenatal life, when they are in the womb, and the first 7 years, it is such a critical time because we neuroscientists, and I tell you this because this is also my field of research in science, the science of the neonates and especially neonatal pain. Quite recently, a paper proved that whatever happens in the first critical years will be redefining the whole pathway of the nervous system and exposing this child later to either depression, anxiety, drug addiction, etc. Many parents nowadays are, for example, exposing their kids too early to TV. You shouldn't expose your children to watch TV at all before 2 years of age. At all. And this is not being radical. They have no need of watching anything, even if it's educational, because the brain is overly excited. It's such a sensitive system that at the very beginning, whatever you give food to that brain, it's going to escalate in pathways that probably you don't want to overexcite at an early age. So we here have a very good experience to share with you also about ourselves as a spiritist. When I was a child, I was born also a sensitive, psychic, whatever name we give, seeing spirits, because it's more normal than people imagine that children have this sensitivity, that openness. And I remember being in a spiritist family made it so much easier because not only I got knowledge in the spiritist center that the spirits I was seeing was a natural thing, but also being in a spiritist home with the gospel at home, etc. I could see the shift every time we prayed at home. Other better entities came home, and even the spirits helping us when we do our homework. I'll never forget one of the reasons why I loved doing homework. When I got from work, my 4 brothers would be playing soccer on the backyard, and I would go straight to do homework. And sometimes people are like, I don't know why Vanessa studies too much, but I can tell today, because the presence of the good spirits. Because our guardian angels come, and I liked it much because they came along, studied with us, and they also created new homework for us because they wanted us to deepen the study. And I'll never forget that experience when I could often see my hand moving by itself, creating new homework. My mom would come and say, Vanessa, you're creating new homework. Aren't you done? Because you've done your homework. You're creating new. And the mentor said, don't say anything. Just leave us working with you. And even as my mom was a spiritist, I didn't bother her putting too much trouble or concern in her mind. And that's the difference spiritism makes when you raise your child under the precepts of spiritism. It gives you new safe guidelines for your child to be empowered to their own abilities without the need of having other people acknowledge it. It doesn't matter really if the world doesn't understand, because that's Jesus' example. He didn't expect everybody's applause to do his work. He was certain he had to do his work, and we need to teach it from an early age. My child, do not expect the world's applause for you to do what you have to do. Just do it, because it's between you and God, and it starts at home. Well, the book, The New Generation by Divaldo Franco and I, is a great opportunity for you to recap the scientific, educational, and spiritist view on how to educate these children. We also thank Amira directly from Colombia, who is sharing here at Blog Talk Radio an experience. She says, I remember the experience of an 8-year-old girl in which she told us in our children's spiritist course about her advice to her mother when her granny died. Her mother was collapsed with the situation, but she said really naturally to her that their grandma was with them, that she shouldn't be sad because life continues and she will always be with them in their hearts, that they haven't lost her. Mom, don't be sad anymore, she said. And that she feels her all the time. She's just starting to assist to the Spiritist classes for a short time. She loves to go, and she hasn't much previous formation in these topics, but she's totally natural to it. She continues teaching us with her way of being and loving attitude. Thank you so much, Amira, for sharing such a beautiful case here for us and giving some guidance here to the listener that Spiritism has a great framework of education when we experience living with children who are psychic, who are mediums, who are blossoming in their spiritual sensitivity and abilities. It's a great thing for us. Spiritism has all the answers, and plus it has the mechanism for us to educate them well. I hope you have enjoyed this far, but we're not done. We have more. We have the beautiful segments produced by some of our friends at Kardec Radio, and Kirsten DeMello is going to be here with us telling us more. Also, Luis Sergio Maroda on another excerpt of the Gospel According to Spiritism, and Bernadette Leal is going to teach parents about how to teach patience to their children. Let us listen to Bernadette Leal teaching how parents can teach patience to their kids, and right after that, the segments by Kirsten DeMello and Luis Sergio Maroda. At the very end, don't go away, because the most important part also comes when we pray together. That's a very special moment. Also, for those who are following the manifestations in Brazil, which are so fair in many ways, people are free to manifest their thoughts and feelings, how they're experiencing their relationship with the political leaders. We at Kardec Radio reply to all who have been asking what we think about it. Well, what we think about it is exactly what Spiritism says. People are free to manifest as long as they don't cross that boundary of violence, of other people's individuality and rights. And before we actually accuse and demand on anyone, we should actually look at our own selves. As Jesus said, if you don't have a sin, cast a stone. So we ask, if we want a better government, we need to be better citizens as well. So we can demand as long as we are willing also to be less corrupt, as we are willing to be a more straightforward citizen in this world. And to give it a boost, we're joining the prayers at 9 p.m. tonight. 9 p.m. tonight, the whole world is gathering together to pray for Brazil, hoping that we can give a hand, reach out to the betterment of a nation that we are all dependent on in some way and level, because we are all interdependent in this world. Let us listen about patience and how to teach it to children, and more segments for you.
Welcome to our Youth Education Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today, we will answer the following question. How can I learn to be more patient when dealing with children and teenagers? Dear listeners, what a great opportunity to practice patience when we are around children and interacting with them as a parent, an educator, a guardian, or a caregiver. Even though we may feel that children push our buttons or irritate us once in a while, this is truly a blessing, because they are constantly calling our attention to self-control, understanding, and most of all, to love. But in order to be more patient, we need to learn what patience involves. Patience is not something magic that all we have to do is wish for, and we will magically wake up in the morning being a very patient person. Patience is a virtue that has to do with wisdom. It requires practice and effort. So, today, let's reflect on what patience involves and what we can do to be more patient toward children. Patience requires understanding. Therefore, when a child or teenager is acting in a disruptive way or not according to our expectations, we should ask why they are showing such behavior. Children are often trying to communicate something, their needs, their feelings, their wishes, but they do not always know how to express themselves using words. So, when a child is acting out, think about what he's trying to tell you. He could be hungry, tired, sad, frustrated, or simply just wanting our attention. And even though, from an outside perspective, we may think that a child's behavior is unreasonable, there is actually a good reason for it. We just can't see it yet. Next, we should do an assessment of our actions by asking the following question: have I somehow contributed for that child's behavior? It is very easy to blame it all on the child, but occasionally we put ourselves in a situation which we may have created and that will upset us. Here's an example. A parent who loses his patience with his toddler because he is misbehaving in a fancy restaurant. Well, expecting a 3-year-old to act like an adult and sit still in a fancy restaurant is a great mistake. We are, in this case, pretty much asking for trouble. Or, here's another example of a parent who gets mad at her child who struggles to get ready for school in the morning. But this parent also allowed the child to go to bed very late last night. Patience also requires being in control. Getting mad or losing our temper will not help. Instead, it will affect our judgment, and we may end up acting or saying things that we may regret later. If we truly want to become a more patient person, we need to learn to control our actions and reactions. Remember, our children will only push our buttons if we allow to. When we find ourselves in a situation in which we are beginning to get upset and may lose our temper, we should, whenever it is possible, detach from the situation. We can go for a walk, pray, meditate, until we have gained control of ourselves. Being patient is not ignoring the problem, but being able to handle it in a calming way. And detachment helps us to achieve that as we step outside the situation or from any conflict in order to get centered. Another requisite for being patient is communication. Thus, talk to your child in a calming voice about his action, its consequences, how he feels, and also about your feelings. And do not forget to be a good listener by patiently listening to what he has to say without judging. Being patient involves loving ourselves, which means caring about what we do and being conscious about how much our actions and reactions can affect us and our well-being. If we are the kind of person who loses our temper and have no patience when unexpected events come up, we are not taking good care of ourselves. Constant outbursts and anger can affect our health and lead to heart problems, headaches, chest pain, and high blood pressure. Here's what Chapter 9, Item 9 of the Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec tell us about being angry. anger can't solve any problem. It can even harm your health to the point where it puts your life at risk. In becoming violently angry, you essentially become your first victim. So, if you love yourself, start being more patient. When we are patient towards someone, we are being compassionate and putting into practice the golden rule of treating others the way we want to be treated. We all like when someone is patient with us, right? So, why not extending the same kindness toward others? Losing our temper is a sign that we haven't yet truly embraced the concept of immortality of the soul. Many of us believe we are eternal spirits, but we fail to consciously live as such. And if we did, we would not allow certain events in our lives to stress us or irritate us, because we would know that everything is temporary. Whatever suffering or challenges we may be facing with our children or in life will pass. Dear friends, if we want to be more patient, we need to take action. Set up one goal, something that you will be working on this week when you are in a situation which requires you to count till 10 and be more patient. Start with little steps, and most importantly, be an example. If we get mad easily, yell in traffic, complain about long lines at the store, get upset when things do not work the way we expect, that's the example we will be giving to a child. We can't get mad when children throw tantrums if we behave likewise. Cardiac Radio listeners, patience is a sign of our spiritual progress and a virtue that we should all nurture in our hearts and practice. And we would like to end this segment by quoting Chapter 9, Item 7 of the Gospel According to Spiritism. Quote, "You must nurture patience, because it may also be an expression of love and compassion as taught by Christ. There are many different ways of expressing compassion. Giving money to the poor, for example, is one of the easiest ways. There is one kind of compassion, though, that is much harder to exercise, and consequently offers a great merit: to forgive those people who cause your suffering and strain your patience." Unquote. Thanks for listening to Yes. And if you have any questions that would like us to answer in this segment, please email them to Kardec at kardecradio.com.
Welcome, dear friends, to the Spiritist Moment. I am Kirsten DeMello. We are studying Part 3 of the Spirit's book, The Divine Natural Laws. We are studying specifically the law of destruction, and this week we are on the topic of murder. We recommend all those listening to go and read this particular section and actually read and study the whole book. As we studied last week, we discussed about war and sometimes why divine providence allows for it to occur, telling us that it creates progress and freedom, and at times can even push us forward through great suffering. So this week we get specifically into the topic of murder, which one would think that unfortunately sometimes during a time of war there is murder, and the spirits clarify for us. In question 746, quite obviously, they say, Kardec poses a question: is murder a crime in God's sight? Spirits answer, quote, "Yes, a great crime, because those who take the life of another fellow being thereby cut short a life of expiation or mission, hence the evil. So when we discuss this particular section, we learn, as we've been learning as a society for many centuries, that taking the life of a friend, a brother or sister, or any other human being is wrong in the eyes of God. But we learn in this particular section that the spirits tell us every case is a case, and that each case is studied in great detail. If we go to the book Action and Reaction, that's psychographed by Chico Xavier by the Spirit Andrea Luiz, we learn in that book that the law of cause and effect does indeed exist, but there is always an attenuation of the law. For instance, God in His wisdom and mercy looks at every single aspect, in this case, our intentions, anything that helps to mitigate our debt, any good that we have done. And it's comforting for us to know that truly every case is a case in and of itself and is studied in great detail according to these divine natural laws. We are reminded again that in the cases of war, when murder is necessary, depending upon if we are forced to do so, the spirits tell us in question 749, it really depends upon our intentions. But ultimately, how we display our humaneness will also be taken into account, or our cruelty. So everything that we do in life, we learn there can be an attenuation of these divine laws. That yes, murder is wrong and it's a transgression of God's laws, but there is always something that mitigates our debt to some extent or another. So we give an example. If a man goes to jail and he's given 30 years for whatever crime, but if he serves a good sentence, he has good behavior, he works inside the jail and behaves in a very good way, they actually can lower his sentence depending upon his original crime. And if man in our human laws is this way, how much more will God be for us if He is the Almighty Creator? It's something very interesting for us to reflect about. Now, having said that, this isn't a license for others to go and commit and transgress the laws of God, thinking, well, God will forgive me. No, dear friends, as we learn that the little discernment that we have equals responsibility. And to quote directly from the book of Action and Reaction, the mentor, and specifically Minister Sanzio, tells us in the book Action and Reaction, chapter 7, that we also create within our conscience the credits or debits that will bring us joy or pain. So, since we learn that with a slight bit of discernment in life, studying these divine natural laws, the little bit of knowledge that we have, we are responsible for our actions. Luckily for us, for those who are waking up to their spiritual reality and want to do good from here on out, there can be an attenuation of the law. We can move forward, do good things with our lives. Dear friends, we encourage you to continue to do the best you can in your life. We thoroughly encourage you to read and study the entire Spirit's book. Nourish your soul with these divine teachings. And we hope you are also comforted and share with others the same comfort. And we wish you many blessings.
Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. This is Jesus, John chapter 14, verses 1 through 3. Well, my friend, this is Luis Sergio one more time speaking to you about some passages on the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 3. Well, on the verses we've just read, Allan Kardec comments, independently from the diversity of the different worlds, the words of Jesus also refer to the fortunate or wretched states of the soul in the spirit world, conforming to whether the soul is more or less purified and detached from material ties. The ambient in which it finds itself will vary indefinitely. Well, let's give it a break here, my friend, because we definitely feel that we need to highlight this point. Kardec says that our condition in the spirit world will depend on our more or less purified aspect and our detachment from material ties. Of course, he knows these things because he studied very hard all the communications, the results of the communications with the spirits. Well, this aspect alone could make us talk hours and hours about it. The material world is not a goal in itself, but we, as spiritual children, usually take one for the other. We take cat for hare. We believe that there is nothing but matter. This is natural. We at first don't see anything else. We have built this world the way it is now, based on this kind of thought. We have accepted many weird and bad things because of the consumption that the world is nothing but matter. And we have lived many lives on this thought, just like little children in a kindergarten that keeps thinking that the toy is the goal, while the teacher knows that the toy is just an excuse to make the child reach the talents that will make him or her intelligent, sensible, and a good human being. What the spirits from everywhere usually say to us is that, be it verbally or through telling us about their apparent state in the spirit realms, is that our spiritual state here on earth won't change that much on the other side. Although here we can hide our thoughts and feelings in a way that even we forget for a long time what we really are, waking up on the other side. Sometimes we face this reality here on earth, long before we actually pass away. How many people who have searched for everything we put up as a goal, like fame, fortune, beauty, power, and after they reach them, they find themselves in great spiritual trouble. Countless is the number, because if you are an older spirit or an older spirit, if you look for real nourishment, these things are not going to do the job for you. That is why Jesus was surrounded by people who he himself referred to as the sick, those who were not satisfied, not pleased, those who were longing for something else, something that the world, with its toys, could no longer please. Take the spirit André Louise in the book Nosso Lar, A Spiritual Home by Chico Xavier as an example. Here on earth he was a respected high-middle-class medical doctor who bore a very distinct position as head of a beautiful family who lived an apparently wonderful, prosperous, and easy life. After he died, however, he saw himself in a dreadful situation in the lower zones of spirit life, where he had to burn through his ordeal on account of overlooking the main issues of life, some part of the dark side of his soul, since he was already a more mature citizen of the universe. That is what Jesus wisely always tries to make us believe. Life goes on. There is a place for us. If it was not so, he would have told us. That is the true basis of Christianity. That's why, my friend, we are among those who eagerly support the paranormal studies that truly bring us the evidence of the afterlife, even if it may go against all dogmatic biblical interpretations, because the evidence, far from denying what Jesus says supports all his doctrine. Well, my friend, just to wrap it up for today, we will recall here the Apostle Paul in his epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 32. We quote, "If after the way of man I was fighting with beasts at Ephesus, what profit is it to me? If the dead do not come to life again, let us take our pleasure in feasting, for tomorrow will come to die." Thank you so much.
Dear listener, this is it for today. And in the upcoming show next week, we're going to dedicate to the Spiritist view on money. Many people have requested that we address this issue, and Kirsten DeMello and I will be here live telling you about the Spiritist view on money. There's a lot to know. There's actually a book that was written by the Spirit Emmanuel through Chico Xavier entitled Money, but it's not in English yet. You know, what can you expect? So many hundreds of books in Portuguese, it's going to take quite a while. And of course, if you're out there and you know how to translate and you want to help, contact us, because there is a lot of work being done on the behind the scenes. And to tell you the truth, that's the major work we do as well. It's a translation of many, many books. But we are here to share with you that today, when we talk about education for children, we need to pray. Prayer is a great resource. Sometimes we don't know, as parents and educators, the best pathway. Sometimes we are confused. Sometimes we are really troubled by the challenges presented by our children, whether they are good challenges or very difficult ones. So prayer is always the best resource. So let us pray. And Kardec, in the Gospel According to Spiritism, dedicates the last chapter to a collection of prayers. And there's one he dedicates to praying for the children. Well, we're going to do one that is out of our hearts, though if you need it, Kardec's collection of prayers is fantastic. Just go to the Gospel According to Spiritism and get to know about it. Let us now raise our thoughts. Expand our feelings. Breathing in deeply and out slowly. Feeling our divine connection with God. Let us feel the abundant love of God for each one of us. And visualize loving hands, guiding hands, leading the children of today's world towards God. As St. Augustine said in the Gospel According to Spiritism, the mission of parents is to lead their child to God, nothing else. Dear God, we have become more knowledgeable today with the resources you've given through the Spiritist ideas. The presence of our guest, Christina Pearson, the insights about how to create, co-create with you a better world. We are all here dreaming of the day of a better world. And you are giving us all the resources so we can build it up with you. So don't let us wait passively for transformation, but on the contrary, may we be strong and use your resources wisely by teaching our children, opening their path so they can co-create with you a world of greater justice, of greater altruism, and much love and peace. May all the children of the world feel the loving embrace of yours, and especially those who are being challenged by diseases, cruelty, hunger, thirst, abandonment. We pray for them especially and for their parents and educators so they can feel your loving presence and change their hearts to greater illumination. We thank you for life and for giving us the opportunity of bare life in us, co-creating with you and allowing new experiences to happen to all of us. And so be it. Dear listener, in a week from today, another live program for you. It's going to be about the Spiritist view on money. Such an important topic, something that really needs to be revisited. Kirsten DeMello and I will be here talking about that, and you can participate. By the way, if you just send us an email at kardecradio@gmail.com telling how much you like about Kardec Radio, what you like about it, or suggestions, comments, whatever. Even if you don't like it, that's fine. Just tell us why you don't like it. We may tailor it out. Please tell us, and then we'll send you a T-shirt, Kardec Radio T-shirt. And you know what? This was a T-shirt put together by two great listeners as well, and they kindly had this idea and to surprise us by giving us 100 T-shirts to be given out to the listeners of Kardec Radio. Isn't that amazing? There is this and much more. July 4th, there is a special program, 3-hour special program live at Kardec Radio with Dr. Gary Schwartz, who actually kickstarted Kardec Radio with us in 2011. Our friendship with him has been happening in this life since 2008. And since then, he has been a great collaborator of Spiritism and the movement. And he's going to be here with us. Not only him, Kardec Radio's team will be here. And at the very end, you're going to be delighted about the Spiritist view on the radio. You want to know more what's on the behind the scenes, what the spirits tell, if there are guidance, and there is guidelines, rules, regulations. Oh, yes, there are. We're going to share it all with you as we're celebrating 2 years of Kardec Radio. Only 2 years. And we are already in more than 61 countries. We've had achieved already more than 60,000 listeners around the world, and we are rejoiced by the opportunity of bringing to your heart new nourishment, because after all, your soul needs a lot of nourishment, and we are here to share this nourishment with you. For now, we wish you lots of blessings, and if you have anything, just write to us.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.